Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to MS Project, the course. This is video number 5 or class number 5, and we're going to be looking at resources. Now, if you haven't been taking any of the previous videos, that's okay. If you're after just learning about resources, that's where we'll be at. In the description below, I will leave a not a Dropbox link, but a Google Drive link to a start point file that you can actually download and follow along if you want. Don't have to, but that's how you really learn this stuff. I'm a professor of construction management and I teach this all the time with industry and students, and so I've learned a lot along the way. And I know one thing for sure, if you're clicking in the keys as you're watching something, your retention rate's going to be way higher than if you just sort of passively watch. So let's get started. As I said, you can download the file and don't forget to click subscribe and click the notifications. I have lots of videos on MS Project, but even more on construction and construction management. So you can check out my playlists as well on my site. Okay, so let's get started. So in the start point file, I color coded some of the work breakdown structure. We did some of the maneuvering stuff in the last video. How do we switch between screens, like click the square icon box, all these different tables, and you can slide to the side and right click and you can see a whole bunch more tables and sheets. Today we're going to be looking at the resource sheet. So that's the one we're actually going to be spending some time on today. So we're going to create some resources and then we're going to apply them. We're going to follow up with this video on another one that goes in a little bit more in depth at looking at what's actually going on. But this one we just want to kind of create the resources in the resource sheet. And if you click on that, you should come up with the resource sheet. And again, I went to the slid to the left, I right clicked, I went down to resource sheet. I'm going to make my text bigger so you can see it a little bit better. You don't need to do this. I just go to over here, format, click on text styles, and this will make all of your text bigger on your various screens. So if you ever want to make it bigger or smaller, that's how you can do it. Depends on your screen size, I suppose, and what you're actually trying to do. So let's create a few resources here in this table. Best thing is by doing it and then explaining it. So I'm going to say Site Super, PM for Project Manager. I'm going to say Project Coordinator. I'm going to say drywall sub. We'll create a bunch of them. All right, so I'll just go back here and say drywall sub. We'll say electrical sub, plumbing sub. You would put the actual names of these various, it might be individual names, it might be company names, depending on what you're trying to input into the file. All right, maybe I'll put carpenters. And let's see, I was going to put one that's going to be listed as a material. It's a resource type. So let's say that we have drywall supply. All right, that one we're going to just use for drywall. And then we'll have, we got that. I think we're not off to a bad start here for what we've got. All right, let's start with this. So we've got these resources here. We create them. Right? This means nothing to our project even once we create it until we apply them. It's like a separate sheet that we're creating, and then we're going to connect that sheet or parts of that sheet, resources from that sheet, with our actual activities on our project. We want to be able to hold accountability. So I'm going to put PM as work. See, there's 3 types. There's work, material, and cost. Right? We have 3 choices as to how we categorize it. And it's very important how you do this because it's going to limit what you can do. So if I put work, leave it at work, that's very good if I want to do an hourly rate. So let's just put something that's easy to calculate in our heads here. Let's say $100 an hour. Work for the site super, let's say that's $100 an hour. And let's say project coordinator, let's say that's $70 an hour. Let's say the drywall sub we want to make as a cost. They're a subcontractor. We're contracting the work and we're going to pay them according to what the contract that we've arranged with them. So if we have them doing $100,000 worth of work and we plan to pay them in different components, if we apply basically this resource with certain costs on the activities that are using that resource, then it will start to calculate and add that up. And later we can do cash flow statements and things of that nature if we spread the money the way we intend to pay it. So we've got drywall sub, we've got electrical sub, and this will take a few videos just to get through this so that you fully grasp what it means. All right, so we've got plumbing. Something may pop up that you can do this faster. That's fine. I just wanted to do it this way. You can also pull it down in the corner, and that'll pull down and copy it over. Carpenters I want to keep as work, and I'm going to pay them $70 an hour. The drywall supply, I'm going to make a material because I wanted to use all three. You don't use this one as much typically, but it's if you wanted to monitor something by the square foot or the linear foot or the cubic meter or cubic yard, whatever your units of measurement are, then under material that lets you do it. So I'm going to say we're just going to monitor the drywall we're buying, and we're going to say at 50 cents a square foot. I don't know, a sheet of drywall has about 32 square feet, so that's about $16 Canadian a sheet. So just giving you a reference there. Okay, so next up, we've got initials. That's fine. I just usually leave that at default. Now you see it says here maximum, right? Maximum, 100%. So that means what's the maximum people that you have as project managers? 100% means one person. 200% means 2 people. 1000% means 10 people. So it just kind of multiplies out from that. So I'm going to say that we've got 2 carpenters, and that the rest are just 1%, 100%. So we've got 1 of each. And actually, let's make it 3 carpenters just to make it a little bit more creative here. So 300%, and we've got our dollar costs in there. I'm not going to get into the overtime rates and that and cost per use yet. They're not used all that much, but they do come up at different times. So cost per use is like every time you assign something, it's going to add this particular amount, whatever you put there. So maybe you get a disposal box and it's so much, but every time you assign it, you want like a delivery fee or something added to it. That's where cost per use would come in. You can see here base calendar. We did calendars in one of the earlier classes. If we created any special calendar for any of these trades like plumbing subcontractor, if we wanted to, we could assign a calendar if we were monitoring it by work. Microsoft Project doesn't let you assign a special calendar to a cost, but you could assign a special calendar to an activity. And we did that before in the previous video. So if you want to look those ones up, I think it was video number 3 that we did that one in with the calendars. Okay, so we've got this all sort of laid out and set up here. That's not bad. Accrue rats, how do we plan to pay it? Prorated means we're paying it as it goes. Drywall sub, if we're not going to pay them till they finish something, then we'd be better to put the end. So most of our subcontractors, it's usually better to put them at the end. If it's an employee, you better put it as prorated. If you assign, say, the project manager to the whole project, and they're there a year, and you put it that you're going to pay them at the end, that means they don't get paid till the end of the year. If you put it at the start, that means you're giving them everything the first day. I don't think either one's a good idea, so best is to have those ones prorated. Maybe the drywall supply, as soon as they deliver it, maybe you'd want that one at the start. So that would give you a better sense of how the money will be paid out. And so you always try to put that accrual at that. When I do another video on cash flow, I'll get into that. But you kind of got to set this up the way you think that you're going to pay things out. Okay, so I'm just going to click a little save here so it doesn't crash on me. There we go. I'm going to slide to the left, and I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to go to the Gantt chart. All right, so we've got this Gantt chart, and we've created our work breakdown structure, and we've got this thing all kind of set up here. We've got our headings, pre-construction, site mobilization, construction, and so forth. Now, we can start to assign the resources. So now we can actually start to assign the resources. So I'm going to go up to this resource tab up here. So you can just see that up at the top. And I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click on Assign Resources. So this brings up the Assign Resources box, which is kind of handy. It's one of those boxes that you can actually work outside of it. You can do stuff outside of it while it's open. You know how most boxes, when you open them, you can't do anything and it always makes a little beep every time you do to try to do something. This one you can actually work outside of. So it's kind of nice because there's a lot of different ways that you can add resources. This is one. Another is I could just go to the pull down menu if I pull this far enough to the right. By the way, I've got successors still here from an earlier session. I'm just going to click on that, press the delete button, and it deletes it from view. I could always bring it back. Just remember, it's not deleted from the program like it would be in Excel. I could right click, insert column. As long as I know the first letter, it was called successors, then I can click on it and it comes back. But I want to get rid of it. I want to get some more space here. All right, so you see there's resource names. If I pull that down, all those resources I just created, they're all listed there. So I could assign them here. Now that might be handy if you are just doing resources. A lot of projects you just put names to, you don't put costs to, and then you monitor it by time. I would say in construction, most projects are like that unless you're in the heavy civil or you're in the industrial, and then 100% they're pretty much cost loaded. So it kind of depends the sector that you work in. I always like to have cost loading because then I have a better understanding of what's going on in my project, how we're doing financially. But I do understand that it takes a bit more time, depending on the size and scope of the project. It could take a lot more time to follow that and to update all of that information. And there's a cost associated with that. So you have to do kind of like a cost-benefit analysis of what's better. But I'm going to show you how you can add the full-fledged costs to it. But keeping in mind, maybe you just want to add the resources. And if you're just starting out in a simple project, maybe that's all you want to do, create the resources and be able to apply them. So then that's a possibility to do it that way. You could also double-click on an activity and it brings up the task information box. We talked about that in the last few sessions. If I click on predecessors, remember it's going to show whatever predecessors, that's the first one there, so it won't show that one. Resources, now it doesn't show any, but I could pick resources here, right? So I could pick resources here and I could assign them, and I could add costs and I could add units, right? But I'm not going to do that here either. My favorite place to do it is just assign resources. You can also split the screen, which I'll show you in another session, but still, I still find this is a little bit more intuitive for me anyways. Doesn't really matter which way you do it, as long as it does what you need to get done. All right, so I'm going to, on pre-construction, and I'm going to keep this fairly simple because I don't want to belabor it too much. I just want to get stuff on here so that you get an understanding of it. Pre-construction, I'm going to say that the PM is looking after the pre-construction. So we only have a few activities: apply for permit, permit approved, procurements. And I'm going to say that the PM is going to spend 20% of their time on this stuff. So 20% of their time on this stuff. So we're going to put, I'm going to put 20 in here, and then I'm going to click assign. And see that? Put 20%, 4,800, right? And it's 30 days long. Most of it is waiting for the permit. So that's why I only put 20% to try to allocate that. They're going to be doing different things. They're going to be trying to contract with set up all the different subs, set up that the trailer gets delivered, all that kind of stuff. So 20% on that. And now site mobilization. Okay, so now we're going to bring in the PM, and we're going to bring in so I'm going to put the PM on this for 20% again, because that's not too heavy on them. And I'm going to put the site super 100%. They're going to be heavy on this one, right? And so I'm going to assign them to the heading. Now, there could be some pushback that you could say, well, it's best to assign them to activities. If they're going to be in a lot of activities, they're going to crisscross over each other. You got to be careful that you don't assign where they cross over, because it double counts. If you're counting money, it'll double count them. You would have to set up separate line items that would sort of span, like a hammock activity that would span the project team instead of having it on a heading. But I'm going to keep it simple for now. We're going to add the PM and the site super to these two to this heading, so that's fine. They work for you, so that's okay in that respect. And for construction, I'm going to put the PM, now that we're ramping things up, 50%. It's not a huge project, so they're going to be there 50% of the time. The site super, though, is going to be there 100%. So we're going to assign them both. And so that's why you see where this number comes up, where it says 50%, it's $31,600. All right, at 50%. 100% is $63,200. So if you take a calculator and you multiply 79 days times 8 hours, because it's 8-hour work days, the way the calendar is set up in this, right? 79 days times 8 hours, and then you multiply that by $100, then that's going to be giving you what it's costing, right? So in other words, it's basically costing $800 a day times 79, and that's going to work out to $63,200. Usually I have my cell phone with me, and I usually sort of hold it up, but I don't, so we'll just go with the flow for that. All right, so we've got that added. Now we got to get into the nuts and bolts here. Now we're going to start adding our trades. So we've got install metal studs. So we're going to have a few things that drywall supply does. So we're going to say drywall supply. We're going to, when they're finished this, install metal studs, 15 days long, right? When they're finished that, we're going to pay them, right? We're going to pay them, drywall sub. We're going to pay them $20,000. Actually, this is great. So I was clicked on drywall supply, and I was trying to type it in, and it wouldn't let me, right? And so what I had to do was, I'm trying, it won't let me. So that means I was thinking in my head, oh, did I not assign that as a cost? If it doesn't let you type something in, it means you assigned it wrong over here. So I would go to the resource sheet, I would check the resource sheet, and in the resource sheet, I can see that under drywall sub, I've got cost. So that's correct. And under drywall supply, I've got material. But because it's at material, I can't type in a number. I can't type in a number over under the cost. I could only type a number if I had it as a cost. So when you have a problem entering something, it's like, why won't it let me do it? This saves you hours of time, literally. Say, oh, I wonder if I put it as the right type. Or if it doesn't give you a cost other than 0, ask yourself, did I put the hourly rate in here? Or did I, by mistake, put it in the overtime or the cost per use? Because then it won't show up unless you've had it under here. Okay, so let's slide back. Go to the Gantt chart. Okay, so we're back at the Gantt chart. Now I want to apply that resource that I was saying, drywall sub. So I'm going to put in here $20,000. Enter. So at the end of that, they would get paid $20,000. That's why at the crew on the resource sheet, I put end for the ones that are listed as costs, because I don't want to pay them at the beginning of doing it. So you're trying to associate the cost with how the money will flow out. And now you're just going to start going through it and figuring out, and this is coming from your schedule of values if you're in construction, and your breakdown of how you plan to pay the different subs at different points of time. And so here we've got 15,000 here. We've got, for the plumbing, let's say we've got 21,000, just making numbers up here. Rough-in HVAC, if you're following along, that's fine. But do remember, see that? Look, I just clicked on rough-in HVAC, and I noticed that I was going too fast, and I put plumbing sub there. I meant to put plumbing sub over here. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go 21,000. And I mean this sincerely, that scheduling is like, very much like estimating. If you put one and you don't want it, you can remove it. If you put one line item in the wrong place, it's all of a sudden put an extra 21,000 onto something that shouldn't be there. So you have to be pretty meticulous, especially if you're cost loading a schedule, right? So 17,000 here. And so I'm just continuing to add different resources here. Drywall first side. Okay. So I'm going to put here, I'm going to have the drywall come for that. So I'm going to say I've got 20,000 square feet of drywall. And you see when I pressed enter, I could have clicked the sign or press enter, either one works. If I pull this to the side, you see how it says square feet and 10,000. Well, remember, back here in your resource sheet, we created that drywall supply material, square feet. That's why it shows square feet. Whatever you type here, it'll show beside it. Doesn't know square feet, but it knows those letters and it puts it beside it. And we said 50 cents a square foot. And then we said we had 20,000 square feet. So when we said that, then it just said $10,000. It did the math for us. And now over here, I'm going to put drywall sub, and I'm going to put $20,000 again. Right, $20,000, and I'm just going to squeeze this over. Sometimes it doesn't fit the screen, and then it does the moving around business. I'm going to jump to drywall's second side. All right, I'm going to add $10,000 here. Or actually, I should make it 20,000. We made the other one 20,000. Sounds better. Tape drywall. So with the tape drywall, again, I'm going to put the drywall sub 15,000. Now, if you didn't plan to pay them anything at that point, you don't have to put money on it. It's just this should be how you plan to pay it out. Drywall sub, install T-bar ceiling. So we'll do that one again too. So the T-bar for the ceiling, put 15,000. And then we're going to have our electrical with our lighting. So that'd be the electrical sub. We'll put 12,000. Assign it. If you're following along, just remember, if you do one different than me, your answers will be a little bit different. So don't go too crazy. You're just trying to follow along and get the idea right now. But on your own project, you should be very meticulous with this. And I'll show you some tricks how you can look up what you've assigned in a minute. So we've got here, we'll say 25,000, the HVAC. And install ceiling tile. I just wanted to show you a resource that we're going to assign by the hour. So carpenters, all right? I'm going to say I want to assign one carpenter to start out with. So I'm going to assign one carpenter, and it puts $2,800. So that's 5 days, 40 hours, right? So that would be 5 days, 8 hours a day. So that's 40 hours. And what were we paying the carpenters? $70 an hour. So 40 times 70 is 2,800. And that is true. 40 times 70, $2,800. So that's where that number comes from. Again, you can always check over here on the left, right click, you can go to the resource sheet, and there's your $70 an hour, right? So that's the carpenters. That's where that's coming from. So we've assigned one carpenter to do that work, and it's 2,800. So if I go back there. Now, watch, this is something that'll drive you crazy unless you are aware of it. You get the idea after the first time you enter it, it's fine. You know, I could have entered 3 or 5, whatever I want. But when you go back and you change it, all right, so I go back and now I'm going to change it to 2 carpenters. I want you to look at this. It says 5 days. Right? When I make it 2 carpenters, then it's going to cut it in half. It cuts it in half. That's called effort-driven scheduling. It doesn't change the dollar amount, it just changed the time. If you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? One person's going to take 5 days, we got 2, it's going to take 2.5. But up to a point, it's not AI yet, right? So it's not calculating what's the space and how many carpenters can we fit in there. Because, you know, then I could say, oh, we'll add 4 carpenters, and then it'll take 1.25 days. Oh, then we'll add 8 carpenters, and it'll take 5 hours. It doesn't work that way. At a certain point, it's not being efficient anymore, and you got a bunch of carpenters looking at each other. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, if I move that back to 100%, it will go back to 5 days. Now, maybe I want 2 carpenters and I made a mistake. And actually, let's say I want 4 carpenters and I made a mistake, right? So I want it to be 4 carpenters, 5 days. So I'm just going to click that. It made it 1.5. But if I go over here, I could always go up and say, no, I want it 5 days. But watch what it does to my price, right? 11,200, because now you've got 4 carpenters every day, right? So that's 32 hours every day, and then 5 days. So that's like 160 hours, and that's at $70 an hour. You're going to have a pretty high number over here. So that may be what you wanted originally. Now you see this little red guy over here? This is a flag to you. So this is saying this task has over-allocated resources. So I'm going to slide to the left, go back to my resource sheet. And on my resource sheet, I said I have a maximum of 3. So I either have to change that number. Maybe I say I've only got 3. I'll change it back to 3. It's going to make my time longer. Or I have to say, you know what? I can pull 2 more carpenters off another project, and I can get 5 carpenters. And now you see it's not red. So the overallocation part is showing you that something is taking, that you've assigned more than you have available. All right, great. So we've done all those assignments relatively quickly. I'm going to do another video that's going to follow up on this in a little bit more detail because I don't want to spend too much time on each individual video. But if I go back to the Gantt chart, there's a cost screen. I want you to know that. So there's a cost screen. So when I click up here and I go right click on my square icon box, click cost, now I can see how much money I've applied to the whole project. I can see how much money at each level I've applied to the project, right? Didn't add anything to cost. I think I'll leave that for the next video when I go over it, right? So I've added this much money. Now I added a whole bunch to the drywaller, right? So I've got all these amounts in here. So I'm not sure how much I applied in total. Do I want to add all these up? I can filter that, which I'll show in another video. But I'm going to slide to the left right now and just go to the resource sheet. There's actually over here on that square icon box, there's a cost table there too. It's got its own cost table. So now I can see in total I've applied $90,000 to the drywall sub. In total I've applied $27,000 to the electrical sub. It sums them up for me so I can see totals for the whole project. I can see I haven't applied the project coordinator yet. So I would be checking my budget and making sure that these are adding up to all my budget numbers. Because if they're not, then I'm missing something. I have to go back and I have to figure that out. So I'm going to slide to the left. Oh, by the way, just remember you can go back and you can go back into the entry view, you know, in this if you want to add more resources, that sort of thing. And then I'm going to slide over here, the Gantt chart. And so we can go back, switching between screens, back to our entry view. So this is the first level. I just wanted to get you up to speed on how do I assign resources. Of course, I can pull this bar across. I can see who's assigned over here too in this column. I can put this column in different tables if I want to, so I can see what's going on there as well. All right, so we've applied resources here. We've created a resource table, and we've learned the first basic fundamentals of the 3 types. We've got material, we've got work, and we've got cost, and we've distinguished what's the difference between the various categories, and to be very careful to make sure you've got the right category with the right resource so you're able to follow up on it correctly. So I'm Tom Stephenson. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please, it helps me out if you click the subscribe button and notifications. And you can check my playlists, but I've got follow-up videos coming on this. Check in the description below. I've got some links to the previous videos as well. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.